The air held a false promise of warmth, a crispness that belied the chilling premonition clinging to the city of Dallas. It was a day draped in the gaudy colours of late autumn, a canvas of crimson and gold against the stark blue Texas sky. Yet a sombre note resonated beneath the vibrant surface. The date, November 22nd, 1963. The hour, 12:30 p.m. A precise, innocuous moment about to be fractured, splintered into a million shards of memory and regret. A motorcade, gleaming like a polished serpent, wound its way through the thronged streets, a symbol of power and optimism momentarily vulnerable. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President of the United States, sat beside his wife, Jacqueline. Their smiles, genuine or practiced, beamed upon the enthusiastic crowds that lined Main Street, a sea of waving flags and eager faces. The air crackled with expectation. The future, as always, hung heavy with possibility. The car turned, a languid, almost dreamlike manoeuvre onto Dealey Plaza, and fate, that most capricious of mistresses, shifted in her seat. The Texas Schoolbook Depository, a monolithic structure of brick and glass, stood silent witness. It was an ordinary building, unremarkable except for the unseen presence it harboured, a darkness coiled within its walls, waiting to unleash its devastating potential. Seconds stretched, elongated and distorted by the impending horror. Then, the sound, sharp, distinct, shattering the illusion of peace, a gunshot followed by another and another, each echoing across the plaza, each striking a blow against the heart of the nation. Kennedy slumped, his face contorted in a fleeting mask of agony. Governor John Connolly, riding in the same car, cried out in pain. Chaos erupted, a maelstrom of screams and confusion. The crowd surged, a panicked wave seeking escape from an unseen terror. Jackie Kennedy, her face a study in disbelief and growing horror, reached out to her husband, her hands stained crimson, the vibrant colours of the day now smeared with the indelible stain of tragedy. Time seemed to warp, stretching and compressing in disorienting bursts. Seconds became an eternity. The world held its breath, suspended on the precipice of irrevocable loss. The motorcade sped away, a frantic attempt to outrun the inevitable, but the bullet once fired cannot be recalled, the damage once done cannot be undone. Kennedy, the charismatic leader, the beacon of hope, was dying, and with him a piece of America died as well. The dream, so carefully cultivated, so fiercely protected, lay shattered on the sun-drenched streets of Dallas, its fragments scattered like broken glass, reflecting a distorted and tragic reality. The day that began with promise had descended into nightmare, and the world would never be the same. The oath still rang in memory, a spectral echo of a promise unfulfilled. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, that I will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. The words, once vibrant and full of conviction, now tasted like ash, a hollow reminder of the man who had uttered them, the ideals he had championed, the future he had envisioned, the energy, the faith, the devotion he had inspired, all extinguished in a hail of gunfire, the fire that had promised to light the world now reduced to a smouldering ember. And the call to service, the impassioned plea to ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, a poignant and unbearable irony, the weight of unrealized potential, of dreams deferred, pressed down upon the nation, a collective grief, sharp and suffocating. The echoes of applause faded, replaced by the deafening silence of mourning, the vibrant colours of the day now muted, drained of their life by the sudden brutal reality of death. Dallas, once a symbol of American progress, had become a symbol of American tragedy, a place forever etched in the collective consciousness as the site of an unspeakable loss. The world watched, stunned and horrified. The fragile threads of peace and hope seemed to unravel before their eyes. The future, once bright with possibility, now shrouded in uncertainty and fear. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, born into privilege and ambition, was a man forged in the crucible of war and moulded by the relentless pressure of expectation. His path to the presidency was not a gentle ascent, but a steep and arduous climb, each step fueled by an unyielding drive and a deep-seated desire to leave his mark on the world. His father, Joseph Kennedy, a formidable figure in his own right, instilled in him a ruthless ambition and a keen understanding of power. The elder Kennedy, a controversial figure who served as ambassador to England during the tumultuous years leading up to World War II, was both a mentor and a shadow, a constant presence shaping John's trajectory. He had witnessed firsthand the machinations of international politics, the delicate dance between diplomacy and aggression, and these experiences, absorbed during his formative years, laid the foundation for his future career. He had seen Joseph navigate the treacherous waters of pre-war Europe, grappling with the rise of Hitler's Nazi Germany. The weight of those historical moments, the gravity of the decisions being made, impressed upon him the importance of leadership and the consequences of inaction. He learned the language of power, the art of persuasion, the subtle nuances of negotiation, and most importantly, he understood the necessity of courage, the willingness to stand against overwhelming odds, to defend one's principles in the face of adversity. After serving with distinction as a naval commander in World War II, earning both medals and scars, Kennedy returned home a decorated war hero, his courage and leadership proven under fire. The war had transformed him, stripping away any vestiges of youthful naivete and replacing them with a steely resolve. He had witnessed the horrors of combat, the fragility of life, the enduring power of the human spirit. He transitioned seamlessly into civilian life, becoming an award-winning journalist and author, further honing his skills of communication and persuasion. His writing, sharp and insightful, revealed a keen intellect and a deep understanding of the world around him. It was a platform from which he could express his views, shape public opinion, and build a following. But politics, the family business, beckoned, and Kennedy, ever ambitious, answered the call. He recognized the potential to effect real change, to shape the future of his country, to leave a legacy that would endure for generations. The lessons learned at his father's knee, the experiences gleaned from war and journalism, all converged, propelling him toward the political arena. He entered the Senate in 1953, a fresh face amidst the established order, bringing with him a youthful energy and a progressive vision. He possessed a rare charisma, a magnetic personality that drew people to him. He was articulate, intelligent, and effortlessly charming. He connected with voters on a personal level, speaking to their hopes and fears, inspiring them with his vision of a better future. His political style was unlike anything America had seen before. His speeches were monumental, his demeanor both confident and approachable. He spoke of progress, of innovation, of a nation striving for greatness. He challenged Americans to embrace the future, to overcome the challenges of the present, to build a society where all could prosper. His love for the West and the freedom of his country was a constant theme. In a world divided by ideological conflict, he stood as a staunch defender of democracy and individual liberty. He spoke with unwavering conviction about the importance of freedom, the dangers of oppression, the need to defend the values that defined America. He presented a vision of America as a beacon of hope, a land of opportunity, a nation committed to justice and equality. He was a symbol of optimism, a voice of reason, a leader who inspired confidence and trust. His message resonated deeply with a nation yearning for change, for a brighter future. He was a master of rhetoric, crafting speeches that stirred the soul and ignited the imagination. He understood the power of words, the ability to inspire, to persuade, to unite. His speeches, infused with passion and conviction, transcended political rhetoric, becoming timeless expressions of American ideals. They were calls to action, challenging Americans to live up to their potential, to embrace their responsibilities, to build a better world. Kennedy's presidency was defined not only by his charisma and progressive vision, but also by the looming spectre of the Cold War and the burgeoning space race. These two defining forces shaped his policies, influenced his decisions, and ultimately tested the limits of his leadership. The Cold War, a decades-long ideological struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union, cast a long shadow over the world. The threat of nuclear annihilation hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the precariousness of peace. Kennedy inherited this volatile situation and navigated it with a combination of strength, diplomacy, and calculated risk. He stood firm against Soviet aggression, confronting Nikita Khrushchev with unwavering resolve. He understood that weakness would only invite further encroachment, that strength was the only language the Soviets understood. He faced down Khrushchev at the Vienna summit in 1961, a tense encounter that left him feeling underestimated and frustrated. Khrushchev, dismissing Kennedy as inexperienced and weak, only fueled the young president's determination to prove him wrong. Kennedy responded with a renewed commitment to freedom, vowing to defend the West against the spread of communism. He rallied the American people, reminding them of the values they held dear, the principles for which they stood. He strengthened America's military defenses, bolstering its nuclear arsenal and preparing the nation for any eventuality. He understood that deterrence was the key to preventing war, that a strong defense was the best way to ensure peace. But he also sought opportunities for dialogue, recognizing the need to find common ground with the Soviets. He believed that communication was essential, that understanding each other's perspectives was the only way to avoid catastrophic conflict. He sent troops and military advisors to Vietnam, a decision that would later prove controversial, but at the time was seen as necessary to contain the spread of communism in Southeast Asia. He believed that America had a responsibility to defend its allies, to prevent the domino effect of communist expansion. The construction of the Berlin Wall, a stark symbol of division and oppression, further heightened tensions. Kennedy, standing in solidarity with the people of West Berlin, delivered his iconic Ich bin ein Berliner speech, a powerful declaration of American support. He understood the significance of Berlin, a city divided by ideology, a microcosm of the Cold War. His words resonated around the world, reaffirming America's commitment to freedom and democracy. Alongside the Cold War, the space race captured the imagination of the world. The Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik in 1957 had shocked America, igniting a national fervor to surpass them in technological achievement. Kennedy embraced this challenge, viewing it as an opportunity to demonstrate American ingenuity and leadership. He set an ambitious goal: to land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. It was a bold, audacious challenge, one that would require unprecedented levels of investment, innovation, and national commitment. His speech at Rice Stadium in Houston in 1962 galvanized the nation, inspiring a generation to pursue careers in science and engineering. He articulated a compelling vision of the future, one where America would lead the way in exploration and discovery. He framed the space race not just as a competition, but as a reflection of America's spirit of innovation and its commitment to pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. He appealed to the nation's sense of adventure, its desire to conquer the impossible. He understood the scientific and technological challenges involved, but he also recognized the political and symbolic importance of achieving this goal. It was a way to demonstrate American superiority, to inspire confidence in the nation's future, to unite the country behind a common purpose. The moon landing, finally achieved in 1969, was a testament to Kennedy's vision and leadership. It was a moment of national triumph, a symbol of American ingenuity, a demonstration of what could be accomplished when a nation set its mind to a seemingly impossible task. He had not lived to see the fulfillment of his dream, but his inspiration had paved the way. His commitment to the space program had left an indelible mark on history. The Cuban Missile Crisis, arguably the most perilous moment of the Cold War, tested Kennedy's leadership like no other. The discovery of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from American shores, brought the world to the brink of nuclear annihilation. The decisions he made during those tense 13 days would determine the fate of millions, perhaps even the fate of humanity. Fidel Castro's communist revolution in Cuba had been a thorn in America's side since 1959. Kennedy, inheriting the problem from his predecessor, struggled to find a solution. The Bay of Pigs invasion, a disastrous attempt to overthrow Castro, only strengthened the Cuban leader's ties to the Soviet Union. Kennedy, taking full responsibility for the failure, learned a valuable lesson about the importance of careful planning and accurate intelligence. He realized that military solutions were not always the answer, that diplomacy and negotiation were often the best course of action. But the discovery of Soviet missiles in Cuba changed everything. It was a direct threat to American security, a provocation that could not be ignored. Kennedy faced immense pressure from his advisors, some of whom advocated for immediate military action, a bombing campaign that could trigger a full-scale war with the Soviet Union. He resisted the calls for aggression, recognizing the catastrophic consequences of such a course. He understood that a miscalculation, a single act of escalation, could lead to nuclear war. He chose a more cautious approach, imposing a naval blockade on Cuba, preventing further Soviet shipments of offensive weapons. It was a risky move, a gamble that could have backfired, but it sent a clear message to Khrushchev. The United States would not tolerate the presence of nuclear missiles in Cuba. The world held its breath as Soviet ships approached the blockade. The tension was palpable, the threat of war hanging heavy in the air. Kennedy and Khrushchev exchanged tense communications, each trying to gauge the other's resolve, each trying to find a way to de-escalate the crisis. Behind the scenes, secret negotiations were underway, seeking a diplomatic solution. Kennedy offered to remove American missiles from Turkey, a concession that was not publicly announced, but helped pave the way for a peaceful resolution. Finally, Khrushchev relented, agreeing to remove the Soviet missiles from Cuba in exchange for America's promise not to invade the island. It was a victory for diplomacy, a triumph of reason over the impulse to war. Kennedy had navigated the crisis with skill and courage, averting a nuclear catastrophe. The Cuban Missile Crisis solidified Kennedy's image as a strong and decisive leader, a man who could be trusted to protect America's interests in a dangerous world. He had stood on the brink of nuclear war and pulled back, demonstrating both strength and restraint. But the crisis also left him deeply shaken. He had seen firsthand the fragility of peace, the ease with which the world could descend into chaos. He emerged from the experience with a renewed commitment to arms control and peaceful coexistence. He recognized the need to find ways to reduce tensions with the Soviet Union, to prevent future crises from escalating to the point of nuclear confrontation. He pursued a policy of détente, seeking opportunities for cooperation and dialogue. He signed the Limited Test Ban Treaty, a significant step towards reducing the threat of nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a defining moment of the Cold War, a testament to the dangers of ideological conflict and the importance of strong leadership. Kennedy's handling of the crisis demonstrated his ability to think clearly under pressure, to make difficult decisions, to prioritize the safety of the world above all else. He had stared into the abyss and emerged, not unscathed, but wiser, more determined to build a more peaceful future. Despite his successes on the international stage, Kennedy faced significant challenges at home, particularly in the area of civil rights. The fight for racial equality was reaching a fever pitch, and Kennedy found himself caught between the demands of the civil rights movement and the resistance of segregationist forces in the South. His own views on civil rights had evolved over time, influenced by the growing awareness of racial injustice and the unwavering determination of civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. He initially approached the issue with caution, wary of alienating Southern Democrats, a crucial constituency for his party. But the events of the early 1960s forced him to take a more assertive stance. The freedom rides, the sit-ins, the protests against segregation all captured the nation's attention, exposing the brutal reality of racial discrimination in the South. Kennedy, witnessing the violence and injustice firsthand, began to realize that the federal government had a moral obligation to intervene. He sent federal marshals to protect civil rights activists. He spoke out against segregation. He began to push for stronger civil rights legislation. But his efforts were met with fierce resistance from Southern politicians who vowed to defend the Jim Crow laws at all costs. The Birmingham campaign in 1963, with its images of police brutality against peaceful protesters, shocked the nation and galvanized public opinion in favor of civil rights. Kennedy, recognizing the urgency of the situation, delivered a landmark address to the nation, declaring that civil rights was a moral issue, as old as the scriptures and as clear as the American Constitution. He proposed a comprehensive civil rights bill, one that would outlaw discrimination in public accommodations, guarantee equal employment opportunities, and protect voting rights. It was a bold and ambitious piece of legislation, one that faced an uphill battle in Congress. He worked tirelessly to build support for the bill, lobbying members of Congress, appealing to the public conscience. But he knew that the fight would be long and difficult. The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in August 1963, a massive demonstration in support of civil rights, further increased the pressure on Congress to act. Kennedy, recognizing the significance of the event, expressed his support for the march and praised its organizers. The assassination of Medgar Evers, a civil rights leader in Mississippi, further underscored the urgency of the situation. Kennedy, grieving the loss of a dedicated advocate for equality, vowed to continue the fight for civil rights. He knew that his legacy would be defined in part by his actions on civil rights. He was determined to leave a country where all Americans, regardless of race, had the opportunity to live free and equal lives. But his life was cut short before he could see the Civil Rights Bill become law. The passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, a lasting tribute to his memory, was a testament to his vision and his commitment to justice. His dream of a more just and equitable society was deferred, but not extinguished. His words, his actions, his inspiration continued to fuel the civil rights movement, paving the way for future progress. He had planted the seeds of change, seeds that would eventually blossom into a more perfect union. He had challenged America to live up to its ideals, to overcome its prejudices, to build a society where all could share in the blessings of liberty. His legacy, though incomplete, remains a powerful reminder of the unfinished business of American democracy. He was not a perfect man. He made mistakes. He faced challenges, but he possessed a vision, a courage, a commitment to justice that inspired a nation and changed the course of history. The events of November 22, 1963 unfolded with a swift and brutal finality. The motorcade, once a symbol of hope and optimism, transformed into a scene of unimaginable horror. The gunshots, echoing through Dealey Plaza, marked the end of an era and the beginning of a national trauma. The immediate aftermath was a chaotic blur of confusion, grief, and disbelief. The nation struggled to comprehend the unthinkable. Their president, their leader, their symbol of hope, had been assassinated. Lyndon B. Johnson, sworn in as president aboard Air Force One, faced the daunting task of leading a nation in mourning. He pledged to continue Kennedy's policies, to heal the wounds of division, to unite the country in the face of tragedy. The investigation into the assassination began immediately. The focus quickly centered on Lee Harvey Oswald, a former Marine with a history of mental instability and a known association with communist causes. Oswald, arrested shortly after the assassination, denied any involvement in the shooting, claiming he was a patsy. But the evidence against him was mounting. The rifle found on the 6th floor of the Texas Schoolbook Depository, identified as belonging to Oswald, witnesses who saw him fleeing the scene, the murder of police officer J.D. Tippit, allegedly committed by Oswald shortly after the assassination. Before Oswald could be brought to trial, he was shot and killed by Jack Ruby, a Dallas nightclub owner, in a bizarre and shocking act of vigilante justice. Ruby's motives remain unclear, adding another layer of mystery and controversy to the already complex events surrounding the assassination. The death of Oswald silenced any possibility of a public trial, leaving many questions unanswered and fueling decades of conspiracy theories. The Warren Commission, appointed by President Johnson to investigate the assassination, concluded that Oswald acted alone, but their findings have been questioned and debated ever since. The assassination of John F. Kennedy left a deep and lasting scar on the American psyche. It shattered the illusion of innocence, exposing the dark underbelly of American society. It fueled a sense of distrust in government, a cynicism about politics, a questioning of authority. The images of that day, Kennedy's motorcade, Jackie Kennedy's grief-stricken face, the chaos in Dealey Plaza, are seared into the collective memory, a constant reminder of the loss and the trauma. The world mourned the loss of a charismatic leader, a symbol of hope, a beacon of progress. The assassination sent shockwaves around the globe, shaking the foundations of international stability. Kennedy's legacy remains complex and contested. He's remembered for his vision, his charisma, his commitment to progress, but also for his flaws, his mistakes, his unfulfilled promises. He was a man of his time, shaped by the forces of history, struggling to navigate the complexities of a changing world. His assassination cut short a promising presidency, leaving behind a sense of what might have been. His dream of a more just and equitable society, a more peaceful and prosperous world, remains an inspiration for future generations. The echo of gunfire in Dealey Plaza continues to resonate, a reminder of the fragility of life, the power of violence, and the enduring importance of hope. The vibrant colours of that autumn day in Dallas, forever tainted by the darkness of tragedy, serve as a sombre testament to a moment that changed the world forever. The story, unfinished, lives on, a cautionary tale and a source of enduring